muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding Mountain. I just pumped up my biceps just doing a new type of curl. And it might not be new to you, but it's something I haven't really done much in my life. I can't even remember actually the last time I did this, but I'm really enjoying it, and this is the premise of this video. So if my arms look kind of like blobs, right, it's because that's what my biceps look like when I pump them up. So funny enough, when I'd get on stage when I was competing, I wouldn't pump up the biceps. I would pump up the chest, the delts, maybe the lats a bit, but not the biceps, because I found the biceps looked better when they weren't pumped. Okay, that's a fun fact for you right there. You're welcome. So first things first, I want to get you guys into a certain pattern. Some of you guys might be already doing this, but I notice some of you guys aren't based on the comments that you're making in my video, right? So what I'm going to say to you is, please watch my entire video before arguing with me about a point that I made in the video, because a lot of times I elaborate further on what I'm saying and talk about when what I'm saying is appropriate and when it might not be appropriate. So if anything, I'm usually agreeing with you before you even make your comment. You know what I'm saying? But you just got to watch the whole video to understand what I'm saying. So first things first, maybe this is second things second. Whatever is working for you, I always say, is the truth, okay? Whatever's working for you. We might not know why it's working for you, but that has to be the truth, because this is a very practical thing. This bodybuilding thing, this lifting weights, we're trying to find out what is working for this specific vehicle in this exact moment, not what somebody says should be working. You know, screw all those guys. Let's find out what's working for you right now. And I'm only here to give you ideas and to give you some possible wisdom about what to watch out for, at least when you are conducting your experiments, right? All I'm doing is giving you a few tips about what to watch out for, just in case you're on the path to making a mistake that you can't come back from, right? Such as a real serious injury and so forth. But in the end, it is always about the individual. That's the most important thing. So moving on, you guys have heard me talk about constant tension a lot, and especially constant tension under stretch, and how effective that is for growing muscle. But what are the times that constant tension might be working against you? So assuming that you're doing constant tension and you're stretching the muscle belly in certain exercises and you're getting great results, right? There might be some times where this principle is working against you and you're like, what the hell is Jason talking about? This is not working for me. I'm not growing in this specific area. What am I doing wrong? Well, the truth is you might not be doing anything wrong. Sometimes you have certain situations going on in your body that are taking priority over the muscle you're trying to hit. Case in point, when I am doing curls, especially incline curls, after I had dislocated my shoulder, which is over 20 years ago now, I noticed that my bicep and my shoulder started to contract in a different way than they did before. Meaning that the shoulder would start to hit a lot more fatigue than it used to, because now the delt and the rotator cuff and the bicep had to stabilize the shoulder as a larger part of the movement than before. Because before, the labrum was stabilizing the shoulder just fine. And then when I got a rotator cuff tear from getting hit weird on hockey, that also changed the dynamic of how my bicep was working on my left arm. So, case in point, incline curls, as great as they are and as much as I love them, I still noticed that my front delt would start to exhaust at the same rate as my bicep, whereas before that was not happening, right? Same thing when I'm doing barbell bicep curl. Even if I keep the elbows back, I still notice there's a little bit more delt interaction, even if I'm keeping constant tension on the bicep. No matter what weight I'm using, whatever, the delt is coming into play. So one could say I'm using the constant tension principle, so that's just something wrong with me, right? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Well, I'm going to say to you that there are times where using constant tension might work against you. And one of those times is when you start to notice that your constant tension is not only on the muscle you're trying to hit, but also on the stabilizer muscles in the area, and they're hitting exhaustion before the prime mover that you're trying to hit exhaustion in. So, case in point, yesterday and today actually, I played around with a barbell curl when I'm in a seated position, And when I lower the bar, even though I'm not getting full stretch, I actually just rest the bar on my leg. I even just bounce it off there sometimes, just using lightweight, and I'm just pumping reps. And what I noticed was that the shoulder gets taken out of the exercise because it doesn't need to stabilize the shoulder joint as the bicep stretches or as the bicep elongates, right? So I'm basically taking all that tension off the shoulder when I hit my leg below and then just contract the bicep again. Now, of course, I'm not getting the same type of stretch in the bicep, but my main focus in this one is to squeeze and to exhaust the bicep without anything else taking over the movement, or as much as possible anyway. As much as I want to focus on the bicep as much as possible and take as many other muscles out of the exercise. And by doing this specific movement, I'm noticing that I'm getting this wicked pump that's just a bit different than when I'm doing my incline curls or my standard barbell curl. So this is where you start to mix and match some principles, and you don't want to get too attached to a principle of some sort or a philosophy. And this is really what I'm trying to break with you guys, because sometimes a philosophy can work 80% of the time, but then there's those 20% of the time moments that can really blast you into new results if you are willing to detach from the previous thing that you thought was true in all situations. So another example of this would be skull crushers. Now you start seeing some YouTubers do this where they're doing skull crushers, but they're not doing them on a bench. They're doing their barbell skull crushers on the ground. Now, if you look at this from a superficial level, you'll say, well, that's stupid. They're just resting the dumbbell on the ground. The dumbbell's actually hitting the ground behind their head. So not only are they reducing the range of motion, they're also getting rid of some of that constant tension. So that must be the wrong exercise. It must be a bad thing. But sometimes, especially if you have unstable shoulders, say you have a labral tear or a muscle tear of some sort, or you just are built in a certain way where you notice that your internal rotators start to take a lot of stress, meaning they start to experience exhaustion or fatigue in a certain way. Sometimes when you're doing a standard skull crusher with dumbbells, you might notice that your rotator cuff muscles start to exhaust at the same rate as the triceps. So for this reason, and if you are experiencing this, right, assuming you've tried every technique and whatever, just try this. Try actually doing the dumbbell skull crushers as you're laying on the ground. And because you're resting that dumbbell at the bottom or just bouncing it off, you're not necessarily having to stabilize at the bottom, and then the triceps just get hyper focused on just contraction, 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 contraction. And by doing this once in a while as something different in your tricep training, you may notice that you get more results, right? Because bodybuilding is really the art of hyper focusing stress on certain areas in order to get a desired effect. So I'm not saying to do this all the time, but I am saying that this might help you blast through certain plateaus in your training and at the same time experience a really great pumpy and lumpy sort of feeling. Mountain. So yeah, I hope this helps you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. And if you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com. And if you want to support this channel or listen to a podcast, which is very exciting, the Natural Gallant Bodybuilding Podcast is on Patreon. The link is in the description. It's only $5 a month, and you get to listen to a podcast every week about training. And we do a lot of Q&A on that podcast. So if you're interested in that sort of format of video, I do it in a podcast form on Patreon. Mountain. Natural Gallant.